Now, I know that Game Week 7 isn't even over yet, and we're about to go into an international break. But if you know me, you know I can't resist making FPL content. So in this video, I want to give some early thoughts on players to buy and avoid ahead of Game Week 8. I wanted to start off by looking at a couple of projection models courtesy of 11FI. You can find a link to 11FI. Check the site for yourself in the description below. And the two projection models that I'm going to look at are clean sheet odds and projected goals for all 20 teams in the Premier League. And the idea behind doing so, basically, ranking teams by their likelihood to keep clean sheets over the next 5 or so game weeks helps you identify the defensive assets you might want to be looking at. And then doing the same for projected goals gives you an idea of maybe some of the teams to target, some of the players to target for an attacking perspective. So we got number 1 for clean sheets over the next 5 game weeks. Somehow is still Man City. They've just conceded 2 goals against Fulham. It feels like they concede in every game, but the models still have them ranked really highly in terms of clean sheet odds. I got to say, I'm pretty torn on this one. I just think, I'm not sure you can consider Man City the number 1 team. I mean, you know, track record this season and last season, even when they concede a low amount of XG, for example, or expected goals conceded, they still concede goals. Either, I don't know, the opposition just turns up and scores worldies, or Edison flaps at things. I just think Man City concede a fair few goals. So, you know, if you're looking at these projections, it's suggesting Man City defenders should be on the menu. And of course, they're not, I can't say they're bad options, but I would personally probably avoid them at the moment. Arsenal, you know, they do have some tougher fixtures coming up over the next 5, but their projected clean sheet odds are still really good. They conceded again against Southampton, which is unfortunate, but, you know, they've got a proven track record of over a couple of seasons of being probably the best defence in the league. So, you know, a couple of games here and there against Arsenal, against Leicester and Southampton, sorry, where they have conceded goals. I wouldn't let that worry me too much, and I'd personally still back Arsenal to, at the end of the season, be amongst one of the top ranked defences in the league, right? Liverpool, their fixtures do turn similar to Arsenal. They've got some tough ones coming up. But again, their clean sheet odds still sit pretty good. Yeah, remains to be seen, I guess, how they get through that Game Week 9 fixture. But their clean sheet odds still look good. And another clean sheet for them in Game Week 7 against Crystal Palace. I think that makes 5 clean sheets in 7 games so far for Liverpool. So, honestly, based on performances so far, I'd consider swapping Man City and Liverpool around. Brentford, for their ease of fixtures, ranked number 4. Same with Everton. Everton, of course, with injuries to Mikalenko and Branthwaite. Well, Branthwaite being injured again. I think no Branthwaite really impacts Everton defensively. So whilst their fixtures might be looking good, I'm not sure they'll be keeping many clean sheets. And Brentford, whilst they're playing well and scoring goals, again, I'm not sure how many clean sheets they actually keep, regardless of how easy their fixtures are coming up. And you can see the rest of the teams there. I mean, towards the bottom, Aston Villa, for example, I've been saying this on a few of my streams, I don't like Aston Villa. I'm pretty, in terms of defensively anyway, I'm pretty sure it's been 12 months of football for them in the Premier League, and they've kept 1 clean sheet in that period of time. And outside of the Premier League, obviously at Villa Park at the weekend, the week just gone, they kept a clean sheet against Bayern Munich, right? And at the time of speaking, at the time of recording this video, they haven't yet played Man United. So, you know, there could well be a clean sheet coming in Game Week 7 there. But ultimately, I'm not massive on the Aston Villa defence either. I know probably quite a lot of people watching this video might have some of the cheaper Aston Villa defenders. For me, I personally don't back them all that much defensively. And to be honest, I'm looking at this list. Other than Villa being ranked quite low, I don't really see any other real surprises. In terms of projected goals, I mean, I don't think there are any surprises here at all, really. The sort of best teams in the league rank amongst the best teams for predicted goals. I think the Man United fixtures turn a little bit better in future game weeks. Can you actually trust Man United, though? I'm not too sure. Man City, obviously, they're always going to be ranked really highly for goals, as well as Liverpool and Arsenal are going to be. We all know, you know, these are teams to be targeting, right? Because usually regardless of the opposition they're playing, they usually have a good chance of scoring goals. We got Spurs up there as well. And in fact, I want to talk a little bit about Spurs. They haven't played yet at the time of recording this in Game Week 7. But I think Spurs have got things a little bit more stuck together now in terms of their attack. They started the season a little bit frugal, I would say is the word, in terms of goals. But that Man United fixture and just the way they've been playing in general, I think they've turned things around a little bit from an attacking perspective now. And the fixtures they've got coming up, bar game week 12, which even then I just spoke about Man City defensively and them conceding goals. I think Spurs could score a decent amount of goals in pretty much all of their upcoming fixtures. West Ham at home, Crystal Palace away, Villa at home, Ipswich at home. You know, those are 4 defences that have shipped a fair few goals this season. Then they've got Man City at the Etihad. I always think Spurs line up and match up quite well against Man City anyway. They kind of, the way they can play on the counter-attack really suits them. And we've seen Man City are conceding goals left, right and centre this season anyway. And after that, Fulham, Bournemouth, Chelsea and Southampton, you know, looking at those next, 8, 9, 10 fixtures, they're looking really good from an attacking perspective. And obviously, Heung-min Son is the Spurs talisman, right? So he'll probably be back after the international break. I'm not really going to talk about him because if you were to tell me one player from Spurs, pick them, I'd probably say Heung-min Son. But outside of that, I really like Brennan Johnson as an option. For me, he's probably my pick of like the sub 7 million midfielders in the game right now. He's putting up some pretty decent underlying numbers this season. 2 goals, 2 assists, 0.61 expected returns per 90. And last season, they were pretty good as well. He didn't play all the games and he didn't play 90 minutes every game, but he still put up 0.79 expected returns per 90. 5 goals, 12 assists, and he actually put up 10 XG and only managed 5 goals. So maybe that will improve and his finishing will improve this season. I definitely think Brennan Johnson looks like a decent option. And when talking about Spurs attackers, you know, I'm conscious he hasn't played yet in game week 7, so I'm taking a little bit of a risk talking about Solanke, but I just really like him as an option. You know, he's a proven Premier League goal scorer now. You know, scored 19 goals playing for Bournemouth last season. Seems to be nailed on playing number 9 for Spurs. I think he's been signed to be their kind of out and out under number 9. When Son is injured, I mean, Son is injured at the moment. He'll probably be back after the international break, I think. But if he isn't, I think that means Solanke's going to be on penalties. Yeah, I've said proven Premier League goal scorer, but I think that's really important because, you know, when you look at his ownership, 11%, right, he is still, I would class him as a little bit of a differential. But in terms of a differential, I think he is like as safe as it gets, if that makes sense. I've said it twice. He's a proven Premier League goal scorer, you know, last season and this one now, a couple of goals in 4 games. The expected returns per 90 data that he's putting up is really good. And we just go back to the Spurs fixtures. Like, you tell me a game there where Solanke couldn't feasibly score. You know, that Man City one in 12 is the toughest. But outside of that, even then, I think, you know, Solanke could score in that one. I really like Solanke in particular, and I really like Spurs' fixtures coming up. Their odds of scoring goals, the quality of the fixture they've got is brilliant. I think the Spurs attack is worth targeting. Away from that little segue onto the Spurs attack, just wanted to go back to these predicted goals, bits of data there. We've got Aston Villa ranking fairly highly. I quite like their attack. Like I said, I don't really rate their defence, but their attack, like likes of Morgan Rogers. Duran could potentially be forcing himself in that starting 11 now. Certainly with that Leon Bailey injury. I keep saying Leon when I say Leon Bailey. With that Leon Bailey, we could see Duran, you know, forcing himself a bit better into that starting 11. Newcastle, Anthony Gordon. I mean, he's their penalty taker now, isn't he? Without Isak. Goodness knows how long Isak's going to be out for. But, you know, Gordon's absolutely nailed on, putting up some decent numbers this season on penalties when Isak's not in the team. Chelsea, well, going into game week 7 at least, were the top scorers in the league. Obviously, Cole Palmer's a good option. Nicholas Jackson doing well. Madueke, Sancho, players like that all doing well. Although I would be a little bit cautious about picking those kind of fringe Chelsea attackers. Fringe is probably the incorrect word, but the Chelsea wingers, I just feel like they're going to be prone to rotation, likes of Mudryk and Kunku, Sancho, Madueke. Looks like Madueke and Sancho are the ones that are favoured in the Premier League at the moment. But yeah, goodness knows how long that's actually going to remain for. So ultimately, for me, if I'm picking Chelsea players, I'm probably sticking to Nicholas Jackson, who looks like he's nailed on in number 9. And I'd obviously go Cole Palmer as well. The Man United predicted goals are looking semi-decent. Yeah, not sure about Man United. I'd probably stay clear. You know, for me at the moment, the only pickable Man United player is Bruno Fernandes, who has got 2 red cards in 2 games. So I'm not sure I can really be selling him too much. And honestly, outside of that, yeah, we're looking at kind of the teams you would expect to be amongst here, really. The only other one I would mention is probably Bournemouth and Palace. Players, FPL players might have someone like Eze Semenyo in their team. Apart from Game Week 8, doesn't look too bad for Bournemouth. For Crystal Palace. And well, actually, Game Week 8 and 9 for Crystal Palace don't look too bad. In fact, forgive me, the next 4 fixtures for Palace don't look too bad. But for Bournemouth, their next few fixtures don't look so great in terms of expected goals. So maybe if you're on Semenyo, for example, he's obviously played well this season, don't get me wrong, but I'd probably question just how many goals he's going to score in those next few fixtures. They start to get a bit tough. Outside of that, yeah, I think that's probably it. The kind of top teams for predicted goals are the ones you'd expect, but I really wanted to focus on Spurs because I think quite a lot of their attackers at the moment are relatively low owned. I didn't include Maddison either. Maddison's putting up some great numbers as well. I personally like Brennan Johnson and Solanke. I just think Solanke's nice low ownership and a striker, and Brennan Johnson is a little bit of a differential as well. I'll just go back to Spurs. But I do like Maddison as an option. I just wanted to highlight the Spurs attack. Even though they haven't played at the time that I recorded this video, I still like the look of them. I wanted to do a little segment just to pay respects to the legend that is Bryan Mbeumo, Brentford's absolute talisman and best player. So on penalties, free kicks, plays 90 minutes every game. Those are all the boxes ticked in my mind of a good FPL asset, right? Someone that's on the pitch for every minute, for every game, takes penalties and free kicks. So even if he personally has a bad game, all he needs is a set piece to get a chance of a goal or an assist. I think he's definitely the best player in the game under 8 million right now. In fact, I wanted to put him in to ask the question, if you were to price Bryan Mbeumo right now based on the performance he's put in this season, you know, his role in that Brentford team with no Tony, how expensive would you make him? I'd say I'd probably make him on par with Bruno Fernandes, and his starting price, I'd put him up to somewhere like 8.5 million. And he's put up 6 goals from 7 starts, and his underlying numbers are actually worse than they were last season. I mean, they're kind of on a level. So yeah, it just proves like the elite level that he's playing at the moment. I couldn't not do a little segment on Bryan Mbeumo. And next up, I just wanted to go through a couple bits of data from some expected point sources. So a lot of people like using FPL Review to help them with their transfers and pick players that are expected to do well. So I thought I'd just look at the top players in FPL Review for expected points. I'm not going to talk about the obvious ones. You know, Haaland, Salah, Saka, Palmer. We all know those guys are going to be good, right? I don't need to say that. Foden, interestingly, even though his expected minutes are relatively low, he is still the second best player for expected points over the next 3 game weeks. So it's just something to bear in mind. You know, international break, I don't know if he's in the England squad, actually. I can't quite remember, but I think he'll be used sparingly if he is. Yeah, I like Foden as an option going forwards. I think he's probably going to play most of the games for Man City. His exact minutes, I think, will be, you know, a little bit unsure, and that's kind of what you're getting with him. But I do think his points upside, should he play, is really good. Obviously, Bryan Mbeumo, I just spoke about how good of an option I think he is. He is literally the 5th best player in the game for expected points. Look at the company that he is around at the moment. That's just how well he's playing and how good of an asset he is. We've also interestingly got Dominic Solanke in there. I mentioned him and I mentioned the Spurs attack as, you know, decent options. Solanke is, the 7th best player for expected points over the next 3 game weeks. And again, similar to Mbeumo, that's some real, like, esteemed company that he's amongst. And what I would say as well, he's not in there at the moment because he's injured. But, you know, if Son gets back after the international break and ready for game week 8, you can imagine he'll be in and amongst the top players in this algorithm and the expected points data here as well. So, you know, you can't ignore Son as an option from Spurs as well. But I just like the thought of going for Solanke. And then another blank for Eze, or kind of as expected, I would guess, against Liverpool. So he's really, really been annoying to own from my perspective, at least. Only 1 goal so far this season from the 7 games that he's played. He's looked pretty good in all the games I've seen him. He just hasn't been putting up the returns. However, the FPL Review algorithm still absolutely loves him. He's gone down to 6.8 million now, but the FPL Review algorithm still loves him. And it's not just the FPL Review algorithm either. It's Fantasy Football Hub as well. Their expected points algorithm also really favours Eberechi Eze. Eze, over the next 3 game weeks, is the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th best player in the entire game for expected points, which is, yeah, seems a bit crazy to me, but, you know, both Fantasy FPL Review and Fantasy Football Hub have Eze still as a good option. I've still got Eze in my team. I sat on my hands and refused to sell him ahead of the international break, and I think I'm going to keep the faith, you know. Maybe a lot of people have been given stick to this Fantasy Football Hub expected points algorithm, but it's not just Fantasy Football Hub that are boosting Eze, it's FPL Review as well, and I would suggest that FPL Review, some people see it as absolute gospel. And if that's saying that Eze is expected to do well, you can kind of expect him to do well. I think one other player of note that appear in the Fantasy Football Hub expected points is probably Chris Wood as well. The 11FI model for projected goals for Forest wasn't so good. You can see there just over 1 goal a game, and then match day 12 not looking so great for them. But I really do like Chris Wood as an option. I think he suits that Forest team and the way they play down to a T. He's going to be, he's going to play every game. Whether or not he plays 90 minutes, I'm not quite sure you can call him a 90-minute man. But yeah, I think he's a really good option. And I believe he is the Nottingham Forest penalty taker as well. He might, or that might be when he might have had his penalty when Gibbs White wasn't on the pitch, to be fair. But Chris Wood does have a fantastic record over the last couple of Premier League seasons. Last year, he put up 14 goals from, I believe, 20 starts. And obviously that continues with a good record this season. So that's why we're seeing him in and amongst the top players for expected points, according to Fantasy Football Hub as well. So yeah, just wanted to go through some early data, early few players, even though some of them haven't actually played in Game Week 7 yet, just to go around and talk about some players I'd look to buy and avoid. So I hope you enjoyed that. All right, and that's the end of the video. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if there are any players there that I missed. I thought it was interesting to go through those projections, even though we've got a full international break coming up over the next couple of weeks. I couldn't resist making some content, and I think quite a lot of people will still be thinking about FPL, even though it is an international break coming up. So yeah, if you appreciate the early content, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if there are any players that I didn't speak about. If you're new around here and haven't already, please subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just on your screen right there. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.